I am Professor Jyoti Patnaik from the Department of Pulmonary Medicine, SCB Medical College, and today I will be speaking on the management of long COVID complications. So, what is long COVID? We all know what is COVID-19, and that creates it's a viral infection that usually lasts from 7 to 10 days. But when it sometimes it so happens that the signs and symptoms continue to persist or develops after an acute attack of COVID-19, and that is summarized and called as long COVID. So it includes what? It includes both the ongoing symptoms of COVID-19 from 4 to 12 weeks and post-COVID-19 syndrome that develops after 12 weeks or more. And it has been seen that the symptoms can persist for months together. And these symptoms may be sometimes mild, but sometimes incapacitating. And sometimes also new symptoms may develop well after the time of infection. Long-term illness after infection noticed early during the COVID-19 pandemic, and in these the people who had mild or moderate initial infections. So it was seen that it was not only with those people who had severe infection, also those who had mild and moderate initial infection, sometimes long-term illness continued in them. And this condition can also be collectively referred to as post-acute sequelae of SARS-CoV-2 infection, that is PASC. What is the incidence? The precise incidence was unknown, but one thing is clear, that the incidence declined over time as many people slowly recovered. Some early studies that showed that almost one-third of the people, that means 20 to 33% of the people with COVID-19 experience symptoms lasting longer than a month. So it becomes a very serious issue and it has to be dealt with very carefully. Even a telephonic survey in US in the first half of 2020 showed that about 35% of the people who had tested positive for SARS-CoV-2 experienced a range of symptoms that lasted longer than 3 weeks. What are the causes? It is currently unknown why most people recover fully within 2 to 3 weeks and others experience symptoms for weeks or months longer. The ongoing long COVID symptoms may be due to 4 syndromes. One is that there could be a permanent damage to the lungs and the heart. Another is that usually post-intensive care syndrome, that is if the patient was treated in an ICU, many times this post-intensive care syndrome develops. Another is the viral disease itself causes some kind of fatigue, that is known as myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome, and sometimes it is due to the continuing of the COVID-19 symptoms itself. Other causes for this new and ongoing symptoms include the virus being present in a longer time than usual due to an ineffective immune response that may be seen in those people like HIV patients or those who are on cancer chemotherapy. It can be also due to reinfection with another strain of the virus. Another reason may be the damage caused by inflammation due to a strong immune response to the infection itself. Another could be because of a lack of exercise while being ill for a long period. There is physical deconditioning in these patients. Next is that there could be a post-traumatic stress or other mental sequelae, especially in those who previously had some anxiety, depression, insomnia, and other mental health difficulties. What are the risk factors? Particularly those above the age of 50 are prone to have developed these long COVID, obese patients, or those patients who had previously diseases like asthma, COPD. And it has also been noticed that in the first week of COVID-19 infection, if the patient reported more than 5 symptoms other than cough, fatigue, headache, diarrhea, and loss of sense of smell, then they are more prone to have long COVID symptoms. It has been seen that women are less likely to develop severe acute COVID, but they are more likely to develop long COVID than men. And some research suggests that this is primarily due to the hormonal differences. Other research points include chromosomal genetics and sex-dependent differences in immune system behavior in these patients. In children, again, it has been seen that there was a health data collected from September 2020 to January 21, and it was seen that more than half the children had more than 120 days of symptoms experienced after their diagnosis. What are the symptoms? The symptoms could be extreme fatigue and muscle weakness, long lasting cough, low grade fever, joint pain, needle pain in arms and legs, diarrhea and bouts of vomiting, loss of taste and smell, even parosmia, changes in oral health like teeth, saliva, gums, sore throat, difficulties to swallow, GERD, new onset of diabetes, hypertension, palpitations, skin rash, shortness of breath and chest pain, kidney problems like acute kidney injury and chronic kidney disease, blood clotting like deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism. Seizures may also occur in the COVID-19 patients who were hospitalized, and that could be acute epileptic seizures or status epilepticus. And 57% of these cases usually occur in patients who had experienced some sort of respiratory or gastrointestinal symptoms. Now, these patients, those who have experienced respiratory symptoms, if the treatment with benzodiazepines may be contraindicated due to the risk of respiratory depression, but it has been seen that when these benzodiazepines were given in these patients for acute epileptic seizures, they had a very favorable outcome. That means 96% of them had a favorable outcome. And if it was not given, it was seen that the rates of mortality were high to the tune of 5 to 39%. Psychiatric symptoms has also been seen in these patients. Depression, anxiety, sleep problems and substance use disorders have been common in these patients. There is another interesting finding, that is long COVID and postural tachycardia syndrome. Most people who develop long COVID have condition known as postural tachycardia syndrome or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, POTS. This has been termed as long COVID POTS. The symptoms are feeling of lightheadedness, palpitation and fatigue, and usually for diagnosis an increase in heart rate more than 30 beats per minute in adults or more than 40 beats per minute in children from 12 to 19 years within 10 minutes of assuming the upright posture in the absence of orthostatic hypotension, and this is usually seen up to 3 months. While there is no cure for this POTS, it can be managed by diet, exercise and some medication. What are the investigations that we should undertake in these patients? A full blood count, kidney and liver function test, CRP, ferritin, BNP, thyroid function test should be done. If appropriate, we can look for a 1-minute sit to stand test, and during the exercise test, we have to record the level of breathlessness, heart rate, oxygen saturation and follow an appropriate protocol to carry out the test safely. Usually, it has been seen that management of long COVID requires a holistic support, rest, symptomatic treatment and gradual increase in activity. After ruling out any acute or life-threatening complications and alternative diagnosis, these patients should be integrated into a multidisciplinary assessment service anytime from 4 weeks after the start of acute COVID-19. For people with postural symptoms, for example, palpitation or dizziness on standing, carrying out lying and standing blood pressure and heart rate recordings, that is 3-minute active stand test, up to 10 minutes if you suspect postural tachycardia syndrome or other forms of autonomic dysfunctions. Chest X-ray should be repeated 12 weeks after the acute COVID-19 if the person has not already had one and they are now having continuing respiratory symptoms. These people should be referred with ongoing symptomatic 19 or suspected post-19 syndrome urgently for psychiatric assessment if they have severe psychiatric symptoms or are at risk for self-harm or suicide. What would be the advice for these patients? These patients should be told to pace oneself. That means plan what's to be done and not to overexert. Try to break the tasks which feel difficult down into smaller chunks and alternate easier and harder activities to be slowly done. Frequent short rests are better than few longer ones, so that rest before becoming exhausted. Use muscles regularly, otherwise they will get weaker and make the patient more breathless when they try to use them. Try to gradually increase the amount of exercise the patient is doing and try to go for short walks and doing simple strength exercises and build up from there. Patients should be advised to boost their mood up and stay on top of the mental health. Connecting with people can help and keep them happier. Make sure to keep in touch with family and friends. Have a daily routine that can be good for the mood and sense of stability. And the patient should be advised to stay active continuously, because this will help the release of endorphins and improve the mood. Relieving of joint and muscle pain include flexibility exercises like stretches, yoga, tai chi, etc. Strength exercises like climbing stairs, lifting weights, and working with resistance bands can be useful in these patients. For the venous thromboembolic prophylaxis after the hospital discharge, it has been seen it should be those patients who are at risk due to reduced mobility or active cancer should be given prophylaxis. D-dimer more than 2 times upper limit may be given. So, rivaroxaban 10 milligrams daily for 1 month would be adequate. In pregnancy, it is usually not recommended after discharge. Those patients who have respiratory symptoms like cough and breathlessness, it has been defined as chronic cough when it persists more than 8 weeks. Up to that time, unless there are signs of superinfection or other complications such as painful pleural inflammation, cough can be just managed with simple breathing control exercises and, if required, PPI if the reflux is suspected or GERD is the cause of this cough. Breathlessness is common after COVID-19 and it usually improves with breathing exercises. Pulse oximeters is a useful instrument for assessing and monitoring the respiratory symptoms after COVID-19. Fatigue, usually, as I already mentioned, it should be 1 week of low level stretching and strengthening exercises before targeted cardiovascular sessions. Very mild symptoms are there, then limit the activity to slow walking or equivalent. Increase the rest period if symptoms worsen. Avoid high intensity training at once. Patients who had lymphopenia or required oxygen need respiratory assessment before resuming exercise. Patients who had cardiac involvement need cardiac assessment before resuming. Usually breathing techniques, about 80% of the work of breathing is done by the diaphragm, and in these patients it should be altered with reduced diaphragmatic movements and greater use of neck and shoulder as accessory muscles. Breathing control technique is aimed at normalizing breathing patterns, increasing the efficiency of the respiratory muscles, resulting in less energy expenditure, less airway irritation, reduced fatigue, and improved breathlessness. Chest pain is common in post-acute cases, COVID-19 cases. The clinical assessment includes a careful history, past medical history and risk factors, and a physical examination backed with investigations. Cardiopulmonary complications, 20% of the patients have cardiac involvement. Occult involvement may be even commoner, and these include myocarditis, pericarditis, myocardial infarction, dysrhythmias, pulmonary embolus may be also present several weeks after acute COVID-19. Ventricular dysfunctions are common in these patients and has also been described in young previously active patients. This is maybe due to the viral infiltrations, inflammation, microthrombi, and downregulation of ACE2 receptors. And hence, intense cardiovascular exercise must be avoided for 3 months in all patients after myocarditis or pericarditis. Thromboembolism, COVID-19 is known to be an inflammatory and hypocoagulable state with an increased risk for the thromboembolic events. Many hospitalized patients receive prophylactic anticoagulants, and it is recommended only those who have a risk of these should be discharged with 10 days of extended thromboprophylaxis. If the patient has been diagnosed with a thrombotic episode, then it should be following the standard guidelines. If not known how long the patient remains hypercoagulable following the acute COVID-19. Neurological sequelae like ischemic stroke, seizures, encephalitis, cranial neuropathies have been described after COVID-19, but these all seem to be rare. Supportive management and symptom monitoring in primary care is necessary for these patients. So, the take-home message is that COVID-19 can cause persistent ill health. Around a quarter of people who had virus experience symptoms that continue for at least a month, but 1 in 10 are still unwell after 12 weeks. This has been described by patient groups as long COVID. Our understanding of how to diagnose and manage long COVID is still evolving, but the condition can be very debilitating. The mechanism involved affect multiple systems and include persisting inflammation, thrombosis, and autoimmunity. It can affect anyone, but women and healthcare workers seem to be at greater risk. Long COVID has a serious impact on people's ability to go back to work or have a social life. It has been seen to affect their mental health and may have significant economic consequences for them, their family, and for society. Following up these affected as a means to support the research, which is so critical to understanding and treating long COVID, is very, very necessary. Thank you.